Thanks everybody for coming. We are doing a session today, Chaos to Control, Build Your Agentic SOC with CrowdStrike and Cribl. Customer cohort Mauricio from Pan American Life Insurance Group. My name is Paul MacGyver-Carmen. I am here from CrowdStrike. So from an agenda perspective, a few different bits and pieces. It's going to be quick. Towards the end, we'll have a little short 5-minute video that sort of shows an example of CrowdStrike and Cribl working together. So a quick intro, talking about sort of next-gen SIEM, stopping breaches, some critical data sources, our next-gen service that CrowdStrike has. Again, all of these things that CrowdStrike does, all of the things that we'll talk about in terms of being able to do, are based on getting data in. And so from a Cribl perspective, we'll have a customer story from Pan American Life, why Cribl, some architecture references, and then we're going to have a small demo video, very short. So there's the lovely pictures. Confirm, yep, people, two-factor. No, just kidding. So I'm a sales engineer at Next-Gen SIEM. Been working at CrowdStrike for the last 3 years.
Mauricio here. I'm a threat hunting and incident response engineer at Pan American Life Insurance Group.
Awesome. So, and then when we're done, we've got some pens and some keychains. So there's even swag at the top. So we're going to jump right in. So from a perspective of Cribl and CrowdStrike working together, on the CrowdStrike side, we have something called Next-Gen SIEM. And Next-Gen SIEM has lots of parts to it. I'm obviously not going to go through every single piece of the slides, but at its core on the left-hand side, CrowdStrike brings data in through Falcon Sensor. That's something we have at CrowdStrike to bring data in. But for everything else, and we call that third-party data, your firewalls, your switches, your other operating systems, your whatever data you have, there's that reference to third-party data. And when we bring that data in, there's all kinds of things we can do with it from a perspective of matching up our CrowdStrike threat intelligence. We've got service providers that will analyze and investigate and respond, whether it's collecting the data for compliance or collecting that data for threat hunting, being able to do workflows in a SOAR automation perspective, or even using AI from a perspective of taking advantage of that data that's in, analyzing it, cross-referencing it, being able to detect, respond, open cases. All of those things are based off getting the data in. And so the small short video at the end we'll show is moving data from Cribl into CrowdStrike Next-Gen SIEM is a very, very quick process. Now, that being said, for all the services and the investigation and the analysis that CrowdStrike does, you can see Next-Gen SIEM down at the bottom, perfect. One layer up, identity, and endpoint, and cloud. Those are all things that CrowdStrike collects through our Falcon sensor. And that data just goes from the sensor up to the cloud, done. All data, all moves, don't manipulate, don't have to do anything to it, don't have to filter it, just goes there. But when we talk about the things that you can do with data, for example, well, yes, we can stop something at the endpoint, but how did that something get there? Well, that's where all the third-party data or the non-CrowdStrike data, whether it's your email systems or your traffic analysis or your firewalls or your SSO, that whole layer, anybody who's deployed log management or a SIEM knows that that data is in 100 different formats, there's 100 different ways the data could get sent. And so when you can bring something like Cribl to bear to say, put that layer in, collect all of that data, and then have that data go where you need it, as you need it, how you need it, it makes the job of doing the analysis, the investigation easier for CrowdStrike, but it also makes that job easier for you as a consumer of that data for compliance and running a search or doing a threat hunt or an investigation, for example. So with all the data that we can collect, Cribl helps move that data over super fast and easy. Awesome. From your perspective, you could do investigation, you could do searching, you could do dashboards, you could do alerting, case management, all those things. CrowdStrike also has a service that says, oh, for third-party things, we're going to deploy rules to look for certain things. Oh, in firewalls, we know adversaries do these things. Oh, VMware, for example, it doesn't even have alerting. But we know if you can bring the data over, we can create some rules to look for very specific activities. Awesome. Well, if you take that a step further, CrowdStrike also offers something called Overwatch. So there's the things we know and things we know to look for every time at every customer. And then there's going to be data where if you bring it in, we can use machine learning, AI, present up, bubble up some things that say this kind of stuff together doesn't look normal. Or this kind of stuff probably isn't happening by chance. And then we have a team of analysts and investigators and SOC threat hunters who will then have that human element to say, let's dig into the things that the AI has helped bubbled up. So let them go ahead and investigate and let you know, hey, there wasn't a specific rule for this, but after analyzing all the data you brought in, AI said, we want to look at this, we investigated, we triaged, and we give you the thing to go ahead and look at. You don't even have to look at it. To do all of that stuff, we've got to collect all that data. From a collection perspective, again, bringing data in through Cribl, Cribl Stream, Cribl Edge, feeding over to Cribl Stream, right? That whole process, when you move it over, then we can go ahead and do what we do from a CrowdStrike side. But that's just the vendor side talking. Let's hear a customer talk about what they do.
Thank you, Paul. Well, so our journey started trying to innovate what we already had on our SIEM capabilities, right? So there were a lot of challenges that happened at the time when we were planning to find out what's going to be our next step so that we can get a modern SOC, a modern type of investigation approach, and preparing for the future as well, right? With all that is happening with AI, we needed to move fast to understand what technology could give us more capabilities and centralize the data, most importantly, right? There are so many different telemetries, repositories of data that the CrowdStrike platform already has on its, as part of the platform, depending on the modules that you have. So making all that investigation, we started with our decision, and we decided to go with CrowdStrike. So part of all the plan that we did, right, was to understand what we have right now and what we require for this migration. So I'm gonna share with you all the, which I think it's important to know when you get that step further to modernize your SOC technology, your SIEM technology, right? So one of the key pieces that you need to understand is performance challenges, right? So we had a lot of challenges around performance because we had another group of analysts, if you will, like help desk, where they were creating searches on our old SIEM, which caused like performance issues. So that basically crippled our technology and crippled our investigations as well, our ongoing investigations, right? So bottlenecks there in data searching, ingestion capabilities as well. Those spikes weren't able to be properly sustained. Sometimes the technology will come down. We needed to troubleshoot, spend a lot of hours to understand what was the performance problem. So there's a lot of issues in performance. So people executing poor searches and the technology not able to sustain the amount of data in different pipelines, the collection pipeline, the normalization pipeline, the processing pipeline. It's a lot, right? So that was part of our challenges. So with this, performance challenge, it goes by the hand with limit threat hunting capabilities. Since those searches were slow, that really slowed our investigations. And when we tried to do more threat hunting with other new capabilities that we had with threat intel feeds, right? We wanted to look further on those investigations, be more preemptive. So that was another challenge for us. So the lack of data standardization was also another problem because another analyst was, for example, creating parsers in a different way from the other analyst. So there wasn't a standard, right? With Next-Gen SIEM, there is already a standard set up there with CPS and ECS, right? So those are standards that CrowdStrike already use, and CrowdStrike developed CPS as well. So with that standard, it is more easy to provide those rules of engagement to the people that is building parsing or parsers, right? With the high cost of ownership. So I mentioned that sometimes it was difficult to troubleshoot the issues with our software, with our old technology stack for SIEM. So you, at some point, will require a specialized engineer so that he or she could troubleshoot the problem. That will spend a lot of hours, man hours, on troubleshooting the issue, right? And eventually, if the team is not able to solve the problem, then it comes all the escalation path with the vendor, right? Which sometimes could be really painful. So that makes or elevates the cost of ownership. So that was also part of why we also decided to migrate with CrowdStrike. No robust SOAR capabilities. This is very important. Let me tell you why. Right now, with all that we are seeing in the cybersecurity space, the speed on how threat actors are compromising environments, we needed to find out a way to create our workflows with the current stack of technology that we have for the whole IT solutions that we own. So we found out that the SOAR platform with CrowdStrike Fusion, which we were already using before Next-Gen SIEM, with our EDR and identity protection, we found that we were able to expand a little bit more, because since we now have the power at the SIEM level with all the telemetry from different data sources, we could take better decisions, and we could also create better rules to sustain an automated workflow. And, for example, network contain an endpoint, contain at the identity level, revoke those sessions at O365 level, stuff like that, right? Which is very important, and it needs to be something time-wise. And finally, the platform consolidation. So this is golden, really, really golden. The fatigue on jumping on many different platforms is real, and sometimes the analysts, they probably are not gonna tell you that there is a lot of problems, right, with going on this platform, on the other one, investigate this, then I need to get the data, understand what is happening here, document this, document that. So that takes time, and that comes with again, trying to respond faster, right, with those emerging threats. So the platform consolidation helped us really to have those different data repositories for our cloud data, for our on-prem data, our firewall data, identity data, you name it. There is a lot of different repositories that we have. The most recent is the vulnerability data around exposure management. So that really helped us a lot to move further to understand where we needed to focus to provide those actions, those immediate actions that we needed. So a little bit on the architecture that we had before. So this is a very, I guess, architecture, a very vague architecture, because we didn't want to put like a lot of those pieces that the architecture has, right? So there's a lot behind there, but this is the important part and the summary, right? So we had all of our SaaS solutions, we had our on-prem, all of our on-prem solutions, and we had to deploy at that time event collectors on different data centers, on different network segments. The transmission of data also on, depending on which part of the network you had those event collectors or event processors, will also hinder the capabilities to scale, right? And by scale, I mean when you need to connect those data sources. And there was something very important that came yesterday in the keynote, which was the all the data that AI is going to generate, all those events. Are you really prepared to collect all those events, all those spikes of events that are going to come in the future? So at that time, I didn't really think about it, but it's part of the modernization that we are doing right now. And that's also helping us to prepare for that stage, which is coming in the next few months. Having all those event processors everywhere, it's really difficult to manage, right? You need to involve the networking team, you need to involve different teams to troubleshoot if something is not arriving as expected. So that's part of this architecture, and then the console, right? nothing there like out of the ordinary. This is kind of the most frequent architectures that are seen there. So we made the evolution, right, with all the migration, and that's when Cribl also came into our technology stack. So why do we integrate a technology stack like Cribl on our solution? Simple, because when we did the migration from our old SIEM, we did have a lot of performance issues. So there were like the metrics that we were that we measured at that time, the events per second, the amount of data that we were receiving in a daily basis. It wasn't really what was reflected in reality, because the performance issues weren't actually giving us the right number. So eventually, we ended up with tremendous amount of data. We were over our licenses, and we started to find, hey, we need to find a new technology stack to help us control our data. And that's when we started with Cribl. So we are optimizing our data, carefully optimizing our data, right? Because if you optimize too much, then you can lose visibility of what is important. So we've been able to reduce costs by optimizing data. Real quick, we send our data for long-term storage to Cribl Lake, and then our hot data, if you will, is going to the Next-Gen SIEM. I'm going to show that in the next slide. So we found out the value of the technology real quick, and the flexibility and control, right? You can do a lot of critical and very, I guess, good control of your data in those pipelines that you create in Cribl. And if you, depending on the deployment that you use with Cribl, you can sustain those spikes of events depending on how is the architecture. Maybe if we have some time, we can talk on that a little bit more. So again, this is a summary of the architecture, but this is actually what we ended up with. So we still have all of our cloud infrastructure, our SaaS products, everything that we have on-prem. So all of that, we have a hybrid architecture with Cribl, which means that there is infrastructure on Cribl Cloud, and there is also infrastructure on our on-prem and our cloud infrastructure as well. So it's a hybrid architecture where all of our SaaS is going to the cloud architecture on Cribl, and most of our on-prem data is going to the local stream workers in our data centers and our AWS environment. So why we did this? This reduced the amount of data, of costs of data transmission. You don't need to start engaging too much with other teams to open these ports, to this or that. So it's more, I guess it's more easier to manage, right? Doing this type of solution. And as I mentioned, we send the data to Lake and Next-Gen SIEM. So the cost of ownership is gone down by big time. We don't spend anymore too much time on troubleshooting what happened, what is happening, why we're seeing our events with a 1 hour delay. I know a lot of people can understand that, and that is like, no, why we're seeing this, right? So that's gone. This is a game changer. This technology stack that we built with CrowdStrike and Cribl is really a game changer, and I'm really happy to be part of this transformation that we did. Yeah.
So we've actually got a quick demo video that I'll go ahead and play, but one of the key parts about what Mauricio just talked about is, well, okay, let's say I'm interested in Next-Gen SIEM or whatever. Getting that data from and through Cribl over is actually a really simple process. And so from a video perspective, basically, far left-hand side, right, the data flow of data to come over from whatever data source you have over to Cribl, from Cribl over to Next-Gen SIEM. There's opportunities for filter, massaging, all that kind of stuff that you might want to go ahead and do. The actual flow of data is left to right, but the setup of that data is actually the other way. And so the video is a little bit slow. Let's see, we'll give it one more click. Nope. Can You guys go ahead and try to hit play, and there we go. So in a second, it'll go ahead and walk through, but the short version is the setup's going on. His data is going to flow from left to right, whether it's you're relaying data in from any source that you have set up from a Cribl perspective, so whether it's a pull or a push, it's going to go to Cribl, and then on the CrowdStrike side, there's just a destination. In Cribl, there's a destination for CrowdStrike Next-Gen SIEM. And so that moving of data is very, very simple in terms of, in Cribl, you have a source and a destination. How do you want to get the data in? Where do you want to send it? You can do all the things that you want in the middle. You can see that setup reference that just popped up. On the CrowdStrike side, you set up where do you want the data that Cribl is going to collect, massage, to be sent to. It's like you're mailing an envelope over to CrowdStrike. And so you'll go ahead on the CrowdStrike side and say, this is going to be this kind of data. So in the display that's popping up here, on the upper left-hand side, if you've got CrowdStrike, anybody who has Falcon, for example, you actually got the ability to ingest data 10 gig free and then some for any data source that you've got that you're moving through Cribl. So in CrowdStrike, you go to this Next-Gen SIEM menu. There's an option to add a connection. Hey, I want to bring in some data that's going to come through Cribl. You can also do things, there's like a generic hex. So any data source that you have, you can just send it in. In this case, we've got a Cribl connector. We'll say configure. And when we fill in a few details like, hey, in the Falcon UI, what do you want to call it? What do you want to see the list of the data sources you're bringing in? In this particular example, I use some generic stuff, but there's product name, vendor names, etc. There's going to be a reference to a parser. It's a little bit lower on this one. Any data you bring in, regardless of how you massage it in Cribl, in CrowdStrike Next-Gen SIEM, you can build a parser. Not only can you build a parser, you can actually have sample data that you've brought in through Cribl that you've massaged down, and nobody else is going to have a format that looks like yours. And there's actually an AI builder for parsing in Next-Gen SIEM. You just take your sample data and you upload a file, and it'll build a parser for you. So when you set up a connection like this, it basically says, hey, here's where the data needs to get sent. On the Cribl side, you're going to set up a destination to Next-Gen SIEM. So in this case, Cribl stream, we're going to the default worker group, for example. We'll set up a destination. When you click on that destination, there's only a few boxes to fill in. So whatever you want to do with your data in Cribl, however you want to massage it, I want to send the data that is been massaged, been manipulated to Next-Gen SIEM. Click that option. When you say add a new destination, there's literally only 3 things to account for. What do you want to call it in Cribl? Perfect. As part of that setup in Next-Gen SIEM, we're going to give you a URL of where do you want the data to go from Cribl. That's the SIEM endpoint. There's a request format in Cribl. Just leave JSON. I think right now it's the default. Just going to send a hex standard structure set of data. And then there's a token. And again, when you set up the destination in CrowdStrike, it's going to give you that. So perfect. Now you've got where's the data going to go in Next-Gen SIEM. On the Cribl side of things, you set up a destination, and that's where the data is going to go. Commit stuff. Always commit stuff in Cribl. Make sure you do that. But then for a destination, before you've even gotten your data that you're going to send in, you can actually click on that destination once the commit happens and it's published and it's live and you get the green checkbox. There's a test option on the Cribl side. So you can go ahead and just click on that connector. Go ahead and click on test. My mouse zooms in. But yeah, anywhere in that row for the destination that you've set up, you can click on it. You can click text, test on the upper left. Pick samples. So I happen to have JSON parsing ready to go. On the Cribl side, there's JSON data that you can send. And then I'll just say run test. Put whatever sample data you want. So you can set this up and stage it a few different ways. But in this particular case, there was the receiving end for Next-Gen SIEM just looking for JSON. Cribl can send JSON. It's got samples in the box. And for that row that we set up for Cribl data, in Next-Gen SIEM, when you actually go take a look at the events that came from Cribl. In a second, when this page pops up, you'll go ahead and see the searching from Next-Gen SIEM, that bottom text, blue, green, orange, that's the field names, the values. Anything you set up as a source in Cribl, you can route to that destination in Cribl, and then just have the data go over to Next-Gen SIEM. So anybody who's got Falcon can do this today with any data source that you've got that you're relaying through Cribl. And then if you don't have a parser sort of in the box, it's some custom thing, or you've massaged data because you don't need all the fields, for what you want to do. Take the sample data that you get, which Cribl can see, and on the Falcon Next-Gen SIEM side of things, you can actually load that up as a sample into our AI parser builder, and it'll just build a parser for you. So from a perspective of how to do it, it can be that simple. From a perspective of the power of doing it, Mauricio and the stuff that he talked about is evidence of that. So any other additional bits? We can definitely open it up for questions. We've got a few minutes left.
I think we can go with questions, yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Yep. Oh, we got two. I saw yours first. Exactly, it's that latter part. So anybody who has Falcon Insights, so any of the sensor stuff, endpoint, cloud, identity, if you look in your little Falcon Nest menu in the upper left, you'll see Next-Gen SIEM. And pretty much you can ingest any third-party data, again, not CrowdStrike data. It's basically 10 gig a day. It'll keep it for 7 days. And there's a little bit more than 10 gig, so you've got some room there. You can always bring in data and turn it off if it's a huge data source where it's going to send in too much, just to look at it. But yeah, anybody who has access to Insight right now, you can go ahead and bring that data in. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Question for Mauricio. When you did the initial migration, I guess what I mean is when you migrated to send your log sources through Cribl, did you optimize and then send them to SIEM, or did you just do the migration first and go back later to optimize?
Yes, so in our case, we migrated the data source first. We made sure that all the data that we were expecting was there. And after, maybe it's a process of maybe 3-5 days. After that, understanding and having an analysis on our data. As an example, let's put it Windows events. So for Windows events, we started to make, to understand if all the data was there. How we did it? Well, you group by event ID, you group by a username, target username, and another critical component of the payload. Then you start to understand what's the difference of the data, I guess, between each day. And then you also compare what you had on the previous SIEM technology. After that is when we started with the process of optimizing the data, and the optimization. How we did it is basically the same approach, right? Critical keys or fields in the payload, then understanding what you have there, and then we started with data optimization. And for data optimization, we removed fields from again, in Windows, we removed fields from inside the XML data structure. We kept the structure of the data. Why we kept the structure of the data? Because we also use other services from CrowdStrike, which require, like a Falcon Complete, which requires that you use their parsers. So the requirement of using those parsers means that you can't transform the data, for example, to JSON. Instead of that, you keep the same data structure, but you just remove the field. So that's how we started doing that. And for other type of data sources, we did a full transformation. As an example, instead of syslog, we transformed that to JSON at the Cribl level after making all the check and balances that the data was there. And then the data structure is sent to the Next-Gen SIEM.
Awesome. Thanks. This is a question more on the CrowdStrike side on for the parsers.
Yeah.
You kind of alluded to a little bit there, but when it comes to like a lot of the detections that are built in for CrowdStrike identifying stuff,
sure.
Is it really important to making sure you're using the native parsers, or is like a JSON with OSPF standards or something like that going to be beneficial to be able to still get detections?
Yeah, so it's a couple-parter. For all of the inbox things, we've got parsers expecting a certain format, specific field set, right? Hey, there's a template, click, drag, immediately you're good to go. If you said, well, great, I actually want to cut out half the fields because I don't need them, and then you look at what the rule template is, all of our templates are modifiable. So when you go to publish them, you can say, well, it turns out even that rule that we have, we only need 5 out of the 10 fields. And so you can just take that template and just update it based on what you've done at the data that's coming through. So you've got full flexibility to do it. And then like Mauricio mentioned, for certain services, we're just sort of expecting data to be completely end to end. If you don't have that service or it's a data source that's custom to you, you can do whatever you want to it. Cool. Awesome. Any other questions? 19 seconds. Almost the end of the conference. Cool. Thank you so much for coming out. Like I said, got some pens and some keychains up here, but much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.